Well, it's gotten quiet, so my assumption is that you'd be willing to start a minute early. So I'm gonna give that minute away to Harvey Bowman first thing. But if we could, we'll have prayer and pledge, and Alicia Devins will handle that.
Let's pray. Precious Heavenly Father, I come before you, thanking you for the privilege and honor it is to serve, Lord, on this committee and with this court. Pray, Lord, that you give us wisdom, guidance, and direction in how we serve the county this evening. Pray for the words that we speak, Lord, to be honoring and pleasing to you and to be encouraging to all, Lord. I ask these things in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, J.P. Devins, and I'd also like to say thank you to Sue Madison as she walks in there for bringing this forward to me as our committee so that we could have a discussion. And I tell everybody this is kind of like flipping the coin at a football game. You know, we're going to see heads and tails and see which end of the field we want to take and who's going to be offense and who's going to be defense. All the experts are sitting out there. You're going to teach us what we need to know where we can make some decisions. So really and truly, we're here to listen to what you have to say and try to learn. And I'm proud to be a part of it because I can't think of anyone we need to take care of better than our emergency system, our folks that take care of us. So with that, the first person I'd like to recognize is Chief Gales. And Chief, if you'd come forward and give us a few comments. We have a motion to adopt the agenda. Second, and all in favor? We've adopted the agenda. Chief Gales, go ahead.
Well, it's my privilege to come tonight and introduce some gentlemen and bring you a short history of where our research and our preliminary report on our radio or future radio systems. And if you'll turn to, I think it's page 3 about the history. And early this year, we invited Motorola and Kenwood to meet with us in our chambers with the Judge's Office, Department of Emergency Management, the Sheriff's Office, Rural Fire, and local police departments. In about mid-2018, the judge requested to form a radio advisory group. And John headed that, Director John Luther. And we have those members here tonight, and I'd like to recognize these gentlemen. This was all volunteer. They came, they met, they worked. So as I call your name, would you please stand up for recognition to the Quorum Court? Chief Jeb Roll. Is he here? He's not here. Chief Brian Hubbard over at Farmington. Captain Josh McDonald. Josh. Assistant Chief Steve Harrison for Central EMS. Chief Chris Hoker Strickler. Chief Shane Wood, Round Mountain. And Assistant Chief Jerry Oxford. There you go, with his assistant. Thank you, gentlemen. Now, at this time, I want to turn it over to Director John Luther to make our preliminary report to you and answer the questions. You're going to see a lot of technical talk, and I hope that you enjoy it, and we have a good presentation, and understand Motorola is here in presence to give us
That's
their
correct.
presentation that they previously gave us. So
That's
thank
correct.
you, Chairman.
Thank you. John, come right ahead. Might state your name and your title for us for the record.
Be glad to. John Luther, Emergency Management Director here at the county. Thank you all for having us tonight. As any election does, we'll have some of you that will be here and some of that you won't. And I want to say, after serving at the county this many years, thank you all for your service if you are going off the court. And if you're coming on, we expect a lot out of you. So
Thank you, well said.
thank you. What we've got is a preliminary report. One thing I want to say right off the bat is that we don't have hard cost figures. We've not been able to get those because we've not gone to a bidding process or gotten that far. So any figures that we share with you, understand on behalf of anybody that we have represented here, those costs may vary. So we're not trying to pin anybody down to exact costs. We've got approximations. I think they're close, but again, as a system develops or any project develops, costs can go up, costs can go down. So I just want to be fair to everybody involved and state that. Our current radio system has reached a point where it's no longer supported by the manufacturer. We've been on it about 15 years. That's about what you expect out of a radio system. It was initially purchased over a couple of years on grants from the Department of Homeland Security. I will go ahead and save y'all some trouble. Those grants are no longer available. So that is not an avenue that we have to follow. At the time, Arkansas got about $25 million a year from the Department of Homeland Security. Right now, we're getting about $3.5 million. So the days of being able to get Homeland Security funds to fund projects countywide like we did with this one, we just don't have that opportunity. And that's why we're here before you, is to find out, are there ways that we can come up with funding to replace this current system. I don't want to read this. I know you guys can read it. Each one of you have a copy of it. That project started in about 2004, so I'm just going to try to hit on the high points, and obviously I'll be glad to take questions. Spoke with the sheriff's office back then. We, at the county, had a number of systems that were in operation. Nobody really shared a system. It was independent systems, even on various bandwidths. So it was very dysfunctional in the interoperability world. And something we've learned since 9/11 is that's where we have to work our way toward, is being interoperable. Being able to talk to one another, excuse me, when we have a crisis, and even on a daily basis, obviously. So that started the process, Sheriff's Office, our office, Rural Fire, Central EMS, our partners. The grants were very timely. It worked out very good that we got funding at that time. We sat down, we felt like we've got to do something together. We chose the option that we could afford at the time, and we moved forward. And for, like I said, nearly the last 15 years, and still today, that's where we're at. We're using the Passport radio system as it is today. Chief went over the history with you, kind of what we've done the last year, so I won't belabor that. You see it has current status questions on the next page. Is it still operating? The current system is online. That is correct. Is it functional? It certainly is. Does it serve us well? It does. Are there problems with it? There are. I think anytime you do a project like that, you learn from it and you want to make the next one better. We've certainly learned a lot of things that we want to do different, whatever we do on this next project. One of the reasons it's necessary to pursue a new one, as I mentioned earlier, it's no longer supported by the manufacturer. If we have a catastrophic failure of some equipment on the system today, we cannot replace it. So it could certainly cripple the county and our ability to communicate on the emergency services side of the house. How long will it operate as it is? The current vendor's doing a good job of keeping it on the air. We took a lightning strike this last storm where everybody had tree damage and storm damage, a couple of weeks ago. We were out a couple $1,000s on some equipment at a tower site. Thankfully, we had spares for that. We replaced it and put it back on the air. That was a small problem. It was certainly not a major problem, but that just as easily could have been a larger issue, and it could have affected us more. How will we operate if we have a catastrophic failure? As we visit with you and try to decide what to do, what do we do in the meantime if we have a major problem? We have 5 tower sites right now that are called backup towers. Think of those like a spare tire in your car. It's not really what you want to use. It's not what you want to drive on every day, but certainly it will keep you from being totally broken down on the side of the road. If in fact we had a catastrophic failure and all of our users, small towns, PD Fire, Sheriff, Central EMS, I'll name them over and over again, Search and Rescue, if all of our users that are on our system today had to go to the backup system as a primary because of a catastrophic failure, we would have to change how we communicate. We would have to limit our traffic, and so it would be like that spare tire. It would be restrictive over what our daily one would allow us. But there are plans in place to be able to keep people online. And if you guys won't be bothered, I'm going to show my age a little bit here. Most significant and important points to keep on the forefront. No matter what we do, we have to increase the level of service we provide our users in the field. Okay, and I'm probably going to get in trouble for this. I know I won't from Brett, and I hope I don't from Willie, but 2 events come to mind. You all saw the video the other day of Corporal Thompson in that shooting. We have to provide him communications at that moment in time. He cannot be struggling for comms. When that shooting takes place, he barely had time to react and come out of it as well as he did. So we have to provide communications. When we have a house fire like we had a couple of years ago west of town out in Prairie Grove, and one of our longtime firefighters, very skilled firefighter, goes through the floor of that house into a basement that's fully involved on fire and has to have other firefighters help him extricate himself from that fire, that communications has to work for him. So I'm going to put it on you, no matter what we do, we have to improve the level of service for our users. And I will jump ahead and say this. I don't care where mobile radios work, and that's the radio that's in the car or the fire truck or the ambulance. I don't care. What I care about is the one that they carry in their hand or they wear on their belt. If those work, the car radios work. Okay, and I want to be very clear about that. Used to, we'd look at a system and we could talk in our cars and we could look at where it worked in our cars, and that was good. Those days are gone. It has to work when the individual leaves the fire apparatus, the patrol car, the ambulance. They go in the house, they go on the foot pursuit. And to do that, it takes additional coverage. Okay? To cover a car radio with signal that they can talk on the car takes less coverage than it does to cover when they're out on their portable. So that's a very, very important factor I want you guys to keep in mind. Okay? It says any reduction in communications is certainly not acceptable, and I think we would all agree to that. And then at the bottom, I mentioned the portable radio comment about it has to work on the portable. That's really all we're concerned about. There's 2 options. When we first started looking at system upgrades, the state system, as I will call it, people call it AWIN, P25 is the protocol it operates on. That was a much more costly system than it shows to be today. And so didn't know that we'd be able to afford something at the time and at the cost back then that it was. And so we started looking at some upgrade paths that we might be able to migrate to, and one of those is NextEdge. It's something that we can do to our system and upgrade and have in county as our own system. It's not part of the state system. It's a different protocol. It's kind of a Ford and a Chevy, if you will. And so there are some advantages to that. But since that time, like I said, there's been a lot of changes with the state system. There's been upgrades on the state system. There's been some competition that's come out to certain vendors that have provided additional radios across the board on P25 protocol, which is a system that the state offers. And so, since we first started looking at NextEdge, P25 has gotten more reasonable than it was at the time. But still, NextEdge is an option that we have available to us. With that, we would upgrade certain things at our towers that we have today, and we would have to upgrade most all the mobiles and all the portables. Now, when I said I don't worry about a mobile working, we still have to have mobiles. We still use mobiles. We just don't want to build our system for mobiles. So I don't want to confuse anybody that the mobile radios aren't important. They're still important that we have them. We just want to make sure the handhelds are the ones that we actually build the system to work for. But with NextEdge, pretty big change out on the portables and the mobile radios. Now, these following pages that you'll see here just kind of lists that we've been able to come up with via phone calls with the different agencies as to how many various radios they've got of these various types. And so there's no reason, I don't think, to, you're welcome to look at that later. I'm certainly not going to go over all those, but it shows you from agency to agency who has how many radios and what they have, okay? Excuse me. If you flip on over to where it says adjacent users, that's a few pages in. What Deputy Director Curry, who put this together for us, went out and did was he polled our neighbors to see what they have. And if you look at that, in Arkansas, Benton County is moving to P25, which is the state system. They're moving the county itself and all its small towns, rural fire, PD, etc. Carroll County's VHF. We typically don't do a lot of work with Carroll County. We certainly could go and help them if they requested, but we don't do much with them on a very frequent basis at all. Madison, some of our county work that's done on the eastern boundaries, they work with Madison, but they're in a kind of a split system over there, so no matter what we do, we won't be compatible with them or Carroll. So either direction we go, there's not really, other than a bridging tool, and I'll talk about that later, there's not a compatibility with them. Crawford is an NextEdge user, but they're in a different bandwidth. You kind of see where I'm going. There's a lot of hodgepodge things around, and the one thing that I keep seeing that at least kind of brings people back to the same page is obviously that state system. That's the one common system, as you'll see. Fayetteville's on it. They've been a user of it for, I don't know, I'll say they've been an 800 megahertz user for 25 years or more probably, but they've been on AWIN for, I'll say, 8 to 10, just for sake of argument. They use it every day. I have about 700 users, I believe, on it. And you'll learn later they've got 3 towers on it right here in the city of Fayetteville. Springdale is moving there. I think they've done the contract to go to AWIN, P25 as well. I think XNA is moving to NextEdge. Bella Vista is a NextEdge user. U of A is. Those are all smaller, if you look at that, than Fayetteville and Springdale. And then Rogers has moved to P25 or is in the process of moving to P25 as well. So it's kind of hit and miss across our region as to who does what. But the one common system continues to be the P25 AWIN system. That's the one that, if you're on that, you can communicate certainly on the same system with your peers. Any questions at this point? I don't want to just go on. You good? I'll answer anything at this point. Okay, all right. If you look on the next page of comparison, NextEdge is a current upgrade, okay? Or pardon me, it's an upgrade to our current system. Some of what we would use would be things that we have online today, and certainly we would have to replace certain things as well. Infrastructure and tower sites would remain the same that we have online throughout the county, and a very small number of radios, 163 portables and 70 mobiles, would move forward. So basically all the radios in the field would have to be replaced. We have about 1,700 roughly on the system today. So when you look at 1,700 total user units and you see 163 portables and 70 mobiles, for sake of argument, is all that would move forward, you can see it's going to be a pretty big expense for everybody, no matter what we do. And so I think that's important. And the current dispatch center consoles, we would recommend that they be upgraded to operate best with that system. They don't have to be, but we would encourage that they are upgraded. And there are 12 dispatch consoles between Central EMS, who does all our EMS and fire dispatch, and the sheriff's office, who does all the sheriff's dispatch and small towns law enforcement. So there's 12 seats of dispatchers between those two centers. If we go to P25, we go to AWIN, which is easy to remember, the AWIN name. It's a wholesale change to the new radio system. It would not use any tower sites that we have today. So we would have to put towers in the county, and we would have to have the vendor provide us propagation studies and things that would show us where to gain the coverage for portable radios that we want, where those would need to go. And then we would have to work through the process of either acquiring the tower or leasing the tower, whatever those things that we need to do there are. But that's certainly a possibility. Let's see. And then you can see there's and I think that probably a little more than 88, we were trying to get a count together, but about the same number of radios would move forward to AWIN as move forward on NextEdge. So again, a large portion of radios throughout the county are going to have to be replaced if we go that way. So that's kind of a wash there. And the dispatch consoles would need to be replaced as well. So, again, when I show you these NextEdge platform and P25 platform numbers, again, understand that those aren't, hard and fast bid numbers. Those aren't numbers that we've got on an invoice, if you will. These are numbers that we've found from past purchases or talking to our neighbors about the cost that they're seeing as they move to their new systems. So again, I don't want to pin any vendor down to this is the exact hard dollar that it is, because it could be more, and obviously they could make it less. To go to NextEdge, the portable radio that we'd recommend is about $900. The mobile's about $7,000, and the dispatch consoles are about $20,000. If we look at the P25 platform, there's a variety of vendors for that, and so you can get some higher costs and some lower costs. We kind of have some ideas there of the radios that we would probably, if our office was asked, recommend to the users. There may be others that are available from those vendors. We would certainly entertain those vendors show us their products so that all the users out here, I pick on Chief Hubbard. I'm not going to tell Chief Hubbard what to buy. That's on the Farmington Police Department, and same with the Farmington Fire Department. But we just kind of had some recommendations. We wanted to put those out there. But you can see anywhere from, 2,000, 1,500, 3,500, somewhere in that ballpark, the various radios would cost. And then the P25 consoles, which is what Fayetteville uses, what Springdale uses, which Rogers will use, and which Benton County will use, I think is a 7,500 that they provide, and that one's about $45,000 per seat. And as you see there, you've got a variety of choices as to who you want to talk to and who you want to deal with on your product. So on the infrastructure, this is really the unknown, and hopefully these folks in TAM can help us and give us some better hard figures. That's at some point what we're going to have to get down to, but from what we're estimating, we think to upgrade the current system that we have, which will be continuing to utilize some of the equipment that's on the air today and changing some things out. We're kind of expecting that to be somewhere in the $500,000 range. There's unknowns. There's lots of testing that has to go on to make sure a coaxial cable that's on a tower today hadn't been hit by lightning 10 times that we're unaware of and has complications. It's on the air today, we're using it, but is it really the same as new? Well, we doubt that it is, so we'll have to have a lot of things tested. So there's unknown there. And then the cost for consoles. So on the NextEdge side, we're looking at somewhere around $500,000 for the tower site changes, and $250,000 is our estimate for the dispatch seat changes. As we look at P25 in the state system, let's see, it says to add the capacity to the Fayetteville towers, and I wanted to cover that first because as we sit right here in the center of Fayetteville, they have 3 towers in the city of Fayetteville proper, about 55 square miles. They've got 3 sites. It's wrong for us as Washington County and Fayetteville's neighbors to think that we're not going to tap into their towers, okay? When we do that, we burden their towers with our use. We don't intend to, and they don't want us not to, but it truly impacts. It's kind of like I said to somebody, if you've got a swimming pool and everybody in the neighborhood comes over at some point in time, it begins to cut in to your time in the pool, right? So you either have to expand your pool to accommodate all the people that are there or run everybody off. Well, Fayetteville's, I don't think, going to run us off. I think they understand that they want us to be their partner and they want us to be interoperable. But in fairness to them, I think we would have to have a study done and see how our users, Goshen, Elkins, West Fork, Farmington, Johnson, Wheeler, Weddington, on and on and on, Sheriff's Office, Central EMS, Coroner's Office, how we would impact their towers, because anytime we're within proximity of their towers, we might log into their tower unbeknownst to us and communicate, but we would know that we are loading their towers to some degree. And so we need to do a study, and I think adding some additional capacity to their towers would be the appropriate thing to do. Because what we don't want to do is be on their system and have Fayetteville Fire Department out here with Fayetteville Police Department working a traffic accident right out here in front of the courthouse, and they have problems getting on their own system because we're on it as well. That just wouldn't be right. And the thing about a trunk radio system is you can be on your talk groups and you can be on your talk groups. The system sees both of you, but you don't see one another's traffic. So you don't realize that you're impacting one another. You're able to talk to the people you need to, and you're able to talk to the people you need to, but the system has to manage all that loading. And so in fairness to Fayetteville, I wanted to put that first, that we need to address any needs that they may have because we're going to log into their towers. It's inevitable. And we want to. If we're on that system, I want to be able to utilize their towers. And we feel like across the county, and again, this is where the propagation studies will come in. I think early on when we first met with Motorola, there was talk of at least 2, possibly 3 sites. I feel confident we're going to need 3 sites, certainly with the additional work we might do at Fayetteville. But we feel like those are going to be somewhere in the ballpark of 4.25 per site. And then the dispatch consoles, again, around 45,000. So you guys can kind of do the math there. You know, we get asked all the time, which way do we go? And I imagine that's a question you guys are going to ask. Certainly you heard me say initially that when we first started this venture 4 or 5 years ago, thinking about what to do, costs were considerably higher on the state system than they are today. They're still higher than other options. But in that time, a number of other users that we do work with closely have moved in that direction. Fayetteville was there, and they've been there for a good period of time. State Police is on it. Game and Fish is on it. A number of state users up here. But what has happened is Springdale has made that move. Rogers has made that move. Benton County has now made that move. I'm certain that Taneytown works closely with Benton County's folks quite often. Nob Hill does. You know, Cincinnati and Lincoln and Prairie Grove work with Siloam Springs, and Weddington does. So, I mean, we can't ignore just our border partners. And then with a system like that, you certainly have the ability to talk to anyone that comes in from other parts of the state during a crisis or disaster, or if you travel to other parts of the state. There are certain persons and certain teams that certainly need statewide coverage. I don't look at that as a great selling point. I'm probably taking a different road than some do on that. Our urban search and rescue team, a statewide team, they need it. And we've got a few dozen radios, and we will continue to have a few dozen radios that will work on that system. People transporting folks for the sheriff's office probably need it. Cincinnati Fire Department, Weddington Fire Department needing statewide coverage, it's probably not a big deal for them. Excuse me, but they certainly need communications with their neighbors right here in this region. And that's certainly one thing that system would provide. So as much as it is probably going to shake out to be more costly in the long run, I think we have to weigh, it's proven protocol. We've got some neighbors to the north that tried the other protocol, and they were not as happy with it as probably they wanted to be or others wanted them to be. We've also got people here, right here in town. Steve, I think I'll visit Joe. Is he okay, Tom? We'll walk out now. University of Arkansas has gone next edge, and they seem to be very happy with it. So, you know, I think any way we go, I think there are going to be people that, you know, was that the right choice? I think, again, we have to go back to, can we get a system that works on portable for our people in the field? And ultimately, that's the main thing that's should be our priority. So I know that was quick. I hope it was quick. I've tried to keep it short, but I hope there's some questions.
But it was good. It was very
Okay.
good. I guess my analogy would be I'm known for my used vehicles. I've got 3 used vehicles, and so I get into Jeff's Auto there in Farmington every time, the very day that I call him, because I go so often. And so I got first class service because everything I've got is old, and I'm constantly getting something fixed. I drop one car off and pick up another car. When does it reach a point when Robert needs to buy a new vehicle versus always driving something old?
Right.
And when does it reach the point for the county to dive in and replace all the old with something new versus continually spending money to try to fix it?
Well, you heard me say earlier that this project started, that we're currently using today, this system, you know, early 2003, 4, 5, right in there, it was kind of all coming together. I remember when I started at the fire department back in the 80s, the system we were on, and it was still the system we were on when we went to this one in 2004. Here it is 2018, 2019, and the only funds that the county has truly put into this, and I don't say this to criticize, but I say this to be factual, is very little outside of grant funds in that window of time. Now, I'm not going to do the quick math on that, but that's 30 years any way you look at it. So certainly if the county is going to make an investment, because there are no grant funds available and the need is there, I think that it's imperative that we look at what is our best choice, what is our longevity going to be. I think we put demands on whoever we deal with to say, this is going to work for you, it's going to work where you want it to, it's going to work how you want it to. And then if that costs more one way or the other, then I think it is what it is. And I'm more comfortable saying that now because the users have some options that they didn't have, as I mentioned, a few years ago. A few years ago, cost between the radio that one company had and another company had was considerably far apart. Now those have come closer together. And so the AWIN system, as we call it, P25 AWIN system, is more affordable than it has been in the past. Yeah.
Very good. I recognize Sue Madison.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. What system does the state police use?
That's the AWIN system. It is P25, as I mentioned, yes.
Okay. Well, I was in the legislature when AWIN was our response to the sort of chaos that happened at the Pentagon during 9/11 when the responders couldn't communicate with each other. And there was, as you've said, a lot of federal money coming down
Right.
to support beefing up our systems. And I frankly thought the whole state had adopted AWIN, but I guess some parts didn't.
Well, what happened was the state, and I've been on the statewide radio committee up until a few months ago. I was on it for, 13, 14 years, and so was a part of the state system growing as it did. What AWIN and the state system did was try to provide some level of coverage all across Arkansas. And specifically for those state agencies, again, some have been latecomers, Game and Fish, but obviously Arkansas Highway Police, Highway Patrol, State Police, other users that were statewide users, and that was its, I'll say, primary mission was to provide them service. But in the process of that, others realized, gosh, we've got this asset right here in our county or our city, can we tap into it? And as I sat on that committee for many, many years, I saw a lot of applicants come and join the system. But no, so it did not happen that all of Arkansas was on it. It provided a fair level of coverage all the way across the state, I think, in fairness to say. And even those places, we'll just use Benton County, for example, as they've come, they've realized there's some state coverage there existing, but to do it to the level that they need it every day, they have to add additional infrastructure. And, a lot of places have done that over the last 10, 15 years. And they've joined what was existing. That's correct.
Well, help me understand exactly how this works out there, because I don't use a lot of these portable radios. Let's say we've got Springdale Police, University Police, Washington County, all covering a football game.
Yes, ma'am.
And I don't even want to say this out loud, but if there should be some kind of incident, how would these different kinds of radios interact with the various different local law enforcements there? Is that
How does it play
not
out?
an issue, or?
No, ma'am, it is an issue.
Okay.
Two things I want you to know. One is those departments that you mentioned, along with our office and some others, work very closely together at each of those ball games. We plan for those games, we plan for those problems, and we have people in a room about a third of the size of this one we're in today, and each of them can reach out directly to their people in the field from that command room and communicate what they're hearing from their neighbor. So we've put measures in place to talk to one another in that situation. Is that the most efficient way? Certainly not. What would be simpler, certainly, is the utilization of the same system and or channels that are bridged. And yes, if they were all on the same system type, they could simply twist a knob, communicate with you, twist a knob, communicate with you, considerably more efficiently than trying to go through a center and share traffic second and third hand. So we have a system in place to do it. I don't want you to fear those games, but at the same time, we can certainly improve that.
So it would be easier and quicker.
It could be, yes, ma'am, certainly.
Well, let's talk about the incident where the deputy was involved in that sudden shooting.
Yes, ma'am.
How could that incident have been different if everybody had been on the same system? I mean, because I think state police were called, Springdale police were called.
All hands on deck.
I don't know who called
All
who.
hands on deck, yeah. I don't want to
Did
speak.
the officer in the field call all those people, or?
No, ma'am, I think, and understand, I'm going to speak. He had his hands full. He was doing
Yeah,
everything that
we've
he
seen
had
the
to do.
video.
But certainly, as others discover what hazards and circumstances he's involved in at that moment in time, for the responding parties to be able to go to his channel of communication could certainly help them understand what he's dealing with at that moment in time, and if they need to communicate with him. In the case of Fayetteville and Springdale, they could not have done that because our systems are not compatible. So if we were on the same system, certainly they would have been compatible and they could have directly spoken to him if they need to. And I don't want to get into the operational pieces because,
I won't understand it. That's okay.
thank you, and I don't want to overspeak, how they may or may not want those operational pieces to work, but certainly Fayetteville couldn't have spoken to him. It's simple as that. They would have had to go through 2 dispatch centers to make that happen while he was going through that process. And again, you get time delay, and you get how somebody infers and passes that traffic. It's not the same as him talking on the radio. So,
Let's say something happened at a Fayetteville public school.
okay.
What kind of equipment do our public schools have?
That one certainly, I'm not as informed as to what the city of Fayetteville schools have. I know recently Rogers Schools is doing something in partnership with the city of Rogers as they move to AWIN. We don't typically, on the response side of the house, talk to the schools in that regard. Not opposed to it, but typically they're not on the emergency side of the radio system. Could there be channels that are mutual aid channels if needed for incidents at the school? Certainly there could be. But at this moment in time, it's typically face-to-face when we go to the schools, wherever that may be, whether it's Lincoln School or Fayetteville. And I think that one thing I would make certain that we do is we consider all the schools in the county. I know you use Fayetteville as an example, but a response to Elkins or Lincoln or West Fork is just as important as it is to any of the campuses, either the U of A or Fayetteville or Springdale. I mean, those babies at those schools are all hugely important to us. And so truly, we don't talk to any of the schools radio to radio. They're not on the emergency side. But accommodations could be made so that we could communicate with the schools if we needed to. But they would then have to acquire equipment and be approved to get on the system as well.
Let me ask you about our rural fire departments.
Yes, ma'am.
When we first bought a package way back when, were they each responsible for upgrading their own equipment and paying for it? Or
No, ma'am. At the time, what we did through our office was we bought radios for all emergency response agencies within the county, discipline notwithstanding. And we limited that just because of the amount of funding to, roughly 20 radios per agency. We tried to get the trucks first to make sure they could communicate and have them, and then additional portables we added as we could to try to give everybody some radios on the road and some in the field. And we did that for all small town PD, fire, sheriff's office.
Okay.
And we actually included Fayetteville and Springdale at the time as well, because we felt like the funding is available and we want to be able to communicate with them. And so through our office, we pushed equipment to all users in the county.
Do you feel like that tradition would continue then?
Again, as I mentioned, the state was getting $20, $25, $28, $29 million, and we were probably bringing in a big portion of that to Washington County because of our population and other factors. We don't have that now. I think I will say this, and if they start throwing stuff from behind me, y'all let me know, but those folks are expecting that they're going to, within their agencies, have to purchase equipment no matter what we do. I think what they want us to do as a county is try to find something that they can afford And as I said, things have gotten more affordable, but I think more importantly, they want us to put a product in the field that they can depend on. And I think that's what's incumbent upon us, is that we put the best product out there that we can. And unfortunately, then the risk is on them. But it's not, something that we fail them in that regard.
Well, I think I have to agree with you about that. I mean, if we're going to invest anything at all in a new system, it ought to be what will make us the safest and safest quickest.
That's right, yeah.
So,
As the committee met and first met, and as the chief mentioned, these folks were participating on their own time and taking away, a couple of them would come over on fire trucks because their day jobs at Fayetteville and they're rural firemen, all the rest of the time, and then they try to have a family somewhere outside of that. But, they were coming to our office, and Chief Hubbard was coming in, and different ones, and they were there. And the one thing that we all agreed on initially is we have to talk on the portable, and we have to talk to our partners. If we can do those two things, then it really doesn't matter which way we go. I mean, we just want to be able to talk on the handheld and talk to the neighbors that we need to talk to. Those are the two priorities.
that's all I have now. Thank you,
Thank you,
Mr.
ma'am.
Chairman.
Thank you. Butch Pond?
John?
Yes, sir.
Not to pick on any of the manufacturers or vendors, but it appears that the AWIN system would keep the county more in touch with the rest of the area.
Yeah, I believe that's the case, yes.
Okay, but I do have one question, and it's not because of that, but I will ask, do we have any kind of security as far as a time period that can AWIN say a certain period of time that they'll not become obsolete? Or we'll be able to upgrade if we went to that, if they make changes?
And I think the gentleman that will follow me can explain some of those things to you as well. But I was in Little Rock today. I had lunch with the chairman of the AWIN committee. I asked him some very pointed questions on our behalf, status of the system, continued funding, longevity. One thing that I will say, and again, sometimes I take kind of a path that others may not, and I'm an advocate for this, is the controllers for the state system are in Little Rock. The brain of the system is there, and there's more than one. Don't think that there's only one and it can fail. But one thing I think that what we do up here is if we were to go that direction, I think we get with our partners from the River Valley all the way to the state line, and we say, should we look at a limited core, some core, and we'll have to take a vendor's counsel on what the right thing to do there is, and maybe in partnership with the state. Because I've always felt like, even when I was on the committee, I got cross with folks from time to time because it seems like all our eggs for that system are in one basket, and that's in Central Arkansas. And so I go to those meetings and I see that complication, Butch, and then I go to other meetings and they say, well, if we had New Madrid and we have 19 counties that are devastated and we have that earthquake that wrecks the state, and I think to myself, if all the brains of that thing's in Central Arkansas and the New Madrid fault line's over there, at some point, if we're going to look at populating this area up here on that system, I think we should look at, can we have a controller up here so that we're not cut off if simply a beaver chooses to chew through a fiber optic line or whatever. And we had that on the 911 system one time. AT&T, we lost everything between here and Little Rock simply because a beaver chewed through a line down in Russellville. So things can happen. So honestly, whether it be lightning or, whatever the hazard may be, I think that we have to, as we look forward, we have to ask, what can the vendor provide us? What can the state help us do to assure that that system is on the air, no matter what? And I think that's certainly one thing. I think whatever we're getting into, we're going to look at 15 years. I think technology changes so quickly. I've got one gentleman back here that always says, well, what version iPhone are you on? Well, you didn't have it a month ago. And he's right. Butch may have a flip phone back there. He's the only smart one in the room when it comes to that, I think. But, we change our technology. It's very rapid. It's very rapidly changing. And, used to we talked about a radio system. You talked about 25 years. You don't do that anymore. I think the equipment, no matter what we do, will last that time frame. I think it'll be incumbent upon us to ask the state to do what they're supposed to do to maintain the darn thing and keep it operational. And I think Governor Hutchinson has put efforts forward over the last few years to do that. He spent quite a bit of money to do upgrades that were certainly needed. And so, I don't worry about that as much as I might have in the past, Butch. You're welcome, sir.
Anyone else? Any other JPs?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, John. So I know these are really rough numbers, but I'm just trying to get a grip on kind of how to make a decision on this, because obviously I've heard from the cities, Prairie Grove, Lincoln, whatever, in my district, and the challenges, I think we all know, is that we don't want a subpar communication system or the one that we
Right.
have to re-upgrade, in a shorter time period and do this again. And we want to be able to communicate, obviously, in some intense situations. And the other part is the practical side is how much can we afford
Sure.
to be at that point, so we don't cause heart attacks now when we're balancing budgets. But, so when I just added them up, it's about, if everything that's not NextEdge now went to NextEdge, it's about $1.25 million, give or take, to move the whole county up with the numbers that you kind of have estimated. To move to the AWIN platform is anywhere from $7.5 million, so a $6.25 million difference across the county, all the way down to a $2.5 million for the cheaper $1,500 radio. Now that's very, very rough math. Is it truly an either or? Do we have to go all AWIN or all NextEdge to be practical? Or is there any structure where limited AWIN in pockets? And I'm showing my ignorance probably of the way you communicate. I know that best case scenario would be everybody have AWIN, because then you have no questions as far as the technicality side. But is there a hybrid system that would ever be reasonable or make sense at all? Or is that completely not a good option to even think about?
I would counsel against a hybrid system. I think that the infrastructure may be more expensive on AWIN, as I stated earlier. But when you look at the users' radios, there's certainly options out there that allow the users to be much more close in cost than they used to be. And I think the gentleman from Motorola will tell you that when they come up here in a few minutes. I think when we bought radios from them 10 years ago, they were considerably higher than they are now. I think they even have some that are lower cost than when we bought them a couple of years ago. Same with Kenwood, and same with Harris, and same with ICOM, and same with Bendix King. There are a lot of vendors out there, and they'll probably tell you how many. I don't know that I even know how many. There are vendors out there, probably a couple of dozen, that have radios approved by the Office of Emergency Communications in D.C. To be on a P25 system. So those costs won't necessarily be borne by the end users as much as they will be by the county. Whatever radio they buy out there is a lot closer in cost one to the other than it used to be. What's possibly more expensive for us will be the tower sites. And if we bear that burden, and whatever burden we bear on the tower sites is what those users have to follow. So really it kind of comes back on us. The cost of the tower sites is, and again, these are approximations. I don't want to say that that's the bottom dollar. I'd like to hope that it's not. But I think as our neighbors have all made these moves and commitments, and there's other things that, I don't want to go all night tonight as much as we probably could. There's a lot more to learn. This is certainly just a brief, but I would certainly want to delve more into it and let them prove the point as to why that might be the right way to go, is to spend more money on the system or not.
Thanks. I just want to make sure that before we went to the either or mindset, there wasn't something in the middle, so that helps.
Yeah.
Secondly, is there any aftermarket value to our current radio system? Because we're looking at 1,700 non-AWIN radios right now, roughly, that are in use across the county.
Yeah.
Is there anything to be gained from that, or is that pretty much a total dispatch?
I'd like to show you some of the radios that these folks out here in the crowd carry every day. As much as I've wanted to slap them on the hand a few times for the abuse that they take, you probably would as well, but that's unfortunately just the nature of the beast. The faces get rubbed off on them on the seat belt holders, and they bump things, and they go in fires, and as much as they're operational, to answer your question, I don't know. If I was looking at it, I think in the small value that it might be, the vendors may tell us different, and if they do and they want them really bad, hey, I'm all for it. But most likely, in my estimation, there won't be a great deal of value. I don't know that. And if there's not, then I think we might look at somebody that's possibly less fortunate than Washington County, and we may find a way to help a neighbor somewhere, different parts of the state or wherever. But if there is a value, I certainly think we ought to ask the vendors if there is one and what it is, and see if that couldn't contribute to some cost change.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
I know that we're running out of time, and
Yes.
we need to hear from the other folks, but I will ask this one because the constituent said they wanted it asked, and so I'll ask it. He said, well, I don't understand the radios. Why don't we just use cell phones?
Well,
So, he asked, and I thought, well, by golly, I'll just ask, and we'll find
we're not
out an
supposed
answer
to
for you.
text and drive, I think, is the deal, so I don't want our guys texting and driving while they're going to a call. I'll just leave it at that.
All right, thank you.
Thank you all.
All right, well, next we're going to hear from Joe Gordon and Josh Stubbs, and they're going to make a presentation. I asked them not to give a sales presentation, but just give us a factual presentation, so they've agreed to that. So Josh, you want them to save their questions or ask them as we go along?
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah, please ask any questions you'd like as we go through this. And for the record, we're not here to sell you anything.
Okay.
Okay, I think what the county needs to do is figure out what is its strategy, right? What's the strategy moving forward? Because that's really where, it doesn't need to start with technology. It needs to start with, what do we need? What's our strategy? What's the plan for implementation? So, I'll go through some of that as we get through this. Pardon me?
I'm sorry, the floor is yours.
Yes,
Just
sir.
go right ahead. And as you can tell, we have problems with our speaker systems, that's not our radios,
Okay.
so.
Hopefully you can hear me. My name is Joe Gordon. I'm the sales manager for Motorola for Arkansas and Tennessee. I'm a Arkansas resident. I live in Greenbrier, just right outside of Conway, if y'all know where that's at. 25 years. So as John mentioned, what we're going to talk about tonight is a little bit on the AWIN technology. And hey, you guys got some important decisions to make. I mean, this is, and I think John made some great points, but these guys that pull people over at 2 a.m., your deputy that got involved in the shootout, I mean, they put their lives on the line every day. So what we like to do is refer to mission critical public safety systems, so that when they pick up this radio and they push this button, it's going to work 7 days a week, 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. That is mission critical. So you say, and I heard some numbers thrown around, well, this is cheaper, this is more expensive. There is a reason that public safety systems are more expensive, because they are built different. So we'll get into some of that, but let me start. Is it advancing? I'm going to start in just a second. Hey, give me one of your-
Yes, we're seeing.
There we go. We got locked up there. I talked too long in the beginning. Okay, so you can't talk about public safety, and you heard John mention Project 25. It's a standard, okay? So I wanted to give you a couple, I mean, it's a public safety radio system standard, but it's kind of like, as an analog, if you buy an appliance at a store, right, and you want to plug that appliance into the wall, there's a standard electrical system, there's a standard plug that you plug into, a plug on the end of it. You can buy any appliance and plug it into any plug in North America. I don't know about Canada, but at least in the United States. Okay, it's the same with, say, you get in your car and drive across the United States of America, you can pull into any gas station, pull out that hose, put that nozzle into your tank, and it fits, right? The gas, because they're standards. So Project 25 is the standard for public safety systems, okay? Anything that's not Project 25, we would argue that it's not a public safety grade system. So I would absolutely, as the county goes through its due diligence process on what to invest in, if you're going to invest the kind of money, your numbers you've heard today, you definitely want to invest in a Project 25 system. And I mean, you can read these slides. Somebody mentioned 9/11. I think J.P. Madison might have mentioned it. The reason those firefighters died is because they didn't have interoperability. They're the standards, right? So what happened is DHS, after that event, as John pointed out, they literally pushed billions of dollars out the door. But their only requirement was, if you're going to invest this money, it needs to be invested in P25 technology, because we need standards so that when Springdale comes down, you go to Benton County or Fort Smith or whatever, your radios will work. So that was just a little piece on the standard. All right. So you heard AWIN thrown around. I'm not going to belabor the point of all of this, and I will come back to some of the architecture. And by the way, it can get very technical, esoteric, and boring when you get down into all the components. But what is AWIN? Okay, AWIN is a Project 25 statewide system. Governor Huckabee, back when the grant money was flowing, actually the state usually get a 20% piece of the pie, and the counties or the cities got the other 80%. Somehow he figured out how to keep it all. And he said, you know what? Because it was right after 9/11. We're going to build a statewide Project 25 system. So that's kind of where AWIN got its start. But if you look at the last bullet point on the slide, this is the important piece, right? There are 30,000 public safety users that use AWIN every day across the state, from the biggest in the city of Little Rock down to some small counties like Franklin County may have a handful, right? But on a day-to-day basis, 30,000 users, okay? This is the state of Arkansas's main public safety system. And as I go through this, you'll see as other users come on, right, it makes it better for everybody. All right. Okay, so this is what it looks like. It's a bunch of dots on a map. Actually, it's not. Those dots are those little circles.
I'm not sure they have the visibility.
Oh,
You may have to tell them what slide you're on.
I'm sorry. Yes,
Yeah,
there,
cover
I'm
slide,
sorry. Okay,
Oh, okay,
right.
that's what I was looking for.
okay. So every one of those dots is a radio tower, okay? An AWIN radio tower. Some of them may be microwave, but they're radio towers, all right? And everywhere you see the green, there's guaranteed radio coverage, okay? Now that's, as John pointed out, AWIN was designed initially for mobile coverage. We're certainly going to address the portable coverage here in a minute. But you can see that there is nowhere in the state of Arkansas that you can drive with the mobile and not have coverage. Now you see the white space on this map, right? This was 95% guaranteed coverage. When Motorola built this system, we gridded out the entire state of Arkansas, and we tested every half mile of roads and to make sure that this coverage was guaranteed. And here's the key point at the bottom. Every time a city or county adds towers to AWIN, the coverage gets better for everybody. Why is that, Joe? Well, here's why. Because AWIN is an open roaming system, so any AWIN user can go anywhere in the state, and his radio is going to work. Okay? So if the county adds tower sites, that means the coverage gets better for Springdale, Rogers, Benton County, Siloam, State Police, Game and Fish, right? And then that's a win for everybody. All right. And feel free if you got any questions to ask as we go through this. So a customer told me one time, Joe, the reason, did you have a question, sir? Oh, okay. I'm sorry. Okay. So there's two reasons, this customer told me, and it stuck with me. There's two reasons we invest in radio technology, our governments do. Number one, when you buy a radio system, what are you buying? You are buying coverage, right? And the second reason, which we talked about with your officer-involved shooting and all the stuff, interoperability, okay? So, when you look around at your choices of what should we invest the county's money in, all right, there is no system in the state of Arkansas that will offer the county better coverage or better interoperability for your first responders, right? Just the nature of it. Okay, so from this next slide, typically, and by the way, I've been with Motorola 36 years. I've worked on a lot of different large projects. I was actually worked with Kathy Stalker on the City of Fayetteville project. As John mentioned, Fayetteville was the only user up here who invested in AWIN. I think we started the project in 2010. It took about 14 months to build it. It absolutely was on budget, was on time, met probably exceeded expectations for coverage, okay? And then it seems like there was a lull, and then as John mentioned in his opening remarks, your system is at end of life, okay? That means you're one bad thing away from it being off the air. Rogers was the same way, okay? They had already lost one tower site, or the electronics, and couldn't get parts. The police and fire chief said, hey, we got areas of the city where our guys, can almost see the site, and we're still not talking. It's just that bad. And we're worried that somebody's going to die, one of our officers. So they signed a contract with us, I believe, in the end of 2017. We just cut the system over for them last November, or this last month. I encourage you, if you know any of the folks up there in the public safety community, it was on time, on budget, and exceeded their expectations. I was actually testing some coverage on a handheld and drove up to within 5 miles of Pineville, Missouri, if y'all know where that's at, right? And I was hitting the Rogers system that far into Missouri on a handheld. So, very, very successful project. So, Benton County, yes, sir.
That does bring up one question to me. John had mentioned towers, and Fayetteville has their 3.
Yes, sir.
What's going to be required of Washington County to have the whole county covered on towers?
I've got that coming up in
Coming
just
up?
about
All
a
right.
slide or two.
Stick to
okay?
your presentation.
That's a
Thank
great
you.
segue. So going back to Benton County, because Benton County's kind of an analog for Washington. Y'all are bigger and better, of course, than Benton County. Of course, when I was up there, I said Benton County was bigger. Just kidding. But they're sitting there watching this Rogers project, and they're looking at, well, what's in this for us? Because they, like everybody else up here, 20-year-old technology. I mean, their sheriff's deputies were like, hey, it's a joke. Our radio system's a joke. We can't talk to anybody. We get 5 miles outside of the, down in a hole somewhere. We can't talk to anybody. So when they started digging into it, they approached Rogers and said, hey, what about if we go in with the city of Rogers and invest with you, okay? And when they started looking at the economics, it literally saved the county hundreds of thousands of dollars because of the investment that Rogers had already made, and I don't want to get too technical, but it's simulcast technology, right? So it's like, hey, this makes so much sense on a financial economic basis. Why would we not do this? And so Judge Mooring agreed, and it was quite a lengthy process. Their quorum court meetings got a little heated. One of them lasted 4 hours one time. I know y'all probably don't have the meetings that long up here, down here in Washington. Never get heated, never disagree. But, I think the point is, there's the county partnering with its largest city, and it is just a win-win all the way around. So, as John mentioned, and I'll go over this when I get to the coverage section of this, to the chairman's point, but Benton County's adding 4 more tower sites to the city of Rogers already, too. And they will have 95% portable coverage of the entire county of Benton, and we will test and grid it out, and it will be 95%. So very important. And then, of course, Springdale is planning an investment, and it's coming in January. We've already got the project team assigned, and so is Siloam. So if you look from 2017 to right now, it's been a revolution for us, right? Once Rogers went, Benton County went, Springdale's going, Siloam's going. Yeah, and we'll talk about that, and we'll talk about the school piece here in just a second. So it's not really an evolution. This is a revolution. It's just moving that fast. Because when you start peeling back the onion of the investment that you're going to make in this technology, the benefits to the end users of the interoperability, the fact that you never, any user up in these two counties will never run out of coverage on a mobile and probably not on a portable and can go anywhere. No public safety officer should ever, and I'm not saying every system's 100%, but it's going to be a drastic improvement, and I'll show that to you here in a second. All right. But before I do that, okay, I want to talk about a little bit of a novel application that came up. So there was an editorial about this in the Northwest version of the Gazette. So what the police chief and fire chief and Rogers did, and they both have kids in the school system, right, is they said, hey, you know what? The environment we live in today, we need to go meet with the superintendent and really talk to them, because we want the schools, especially from an emergency point of view, we want them in our dispatch center, okay? And when you look at the time it takes for response times, and I mean, I'm not trying to be doom and gloom, Broward County, that incident down there, it took the Broward County Sheriff's Department an egregious amount of time to get there, right? And in those situations, seconds mean lives, right? So I think that was kind of the support of the editorial is, hey, at least in this city, if it hits the fan, every principal at every elementary school, junior high, every school bus, okay, will have the ability to talk directly to the police and fire dispatch. And one thing I will point out, you see the little orange button here? That's an emergency button. So whenever a user has an issue, say like that deputy that was in that shootout, he hits that button, it goes right back to dispatch, okay, and they know exactly who he is, and if you're using a GPS application, exactly where he is, okay, at that point in time. So you want to send the cavalry in, we know exactly where to go. That makes sense, right? So I thought that was a very novel application. According to our research, no other school district has fully deployed to AWIN. This will be the first one. We actually had a meeting yesterday working through how's the school going to interoperate with police and fire. And both fire chief and police chief were there. I mean, even and I don't know how it works down here exactly, but if you're responding to a medical issue, right, it's like, well, what school do we go to? Where's little Susie? And, you know, so we're very excited about this, and we think it's going to catch on across the state. Okay. All right, so we talked about this revolution. So here is a coverage map that shows the combined coverage of the city of Fayetteville system, the Rogers system, the Springdale system, Benton County, and Siloam Springs. And I would predict that all of those will be online or on the air within the next 8 to 12 months. Okay, so this is a portable coverage map. So everywhere you see green means I'm going to be able to talk, right? On a handheld radio. So you can see, just from a portable coverage, between Siloam, Springdale, and Fayetteville, the county is 2/3 of the way covered with portable radios already, okay? You don't have to do anything as far as tower sites. This exists and will exist today. All right, so that just kind of gives you an idea. Remember, why do you buy a radio system? Number one, you're buying coverage. You can never build this kind of coverage for the Washington County users, okay, on your own. It would be, you just couldn't afford it, right? But because everybody's working together, sitting around a table, talking to each other, not building their own little silos, everybody wins. And the interesting thing, I'm sorry I'm digressing, but I get excited about this stuff, right? So Fayetteville, Springdale, Rogers, Benton County are wanting to form a governance group, okay? Well, what do they need to govern? They want to get together, all the law enforcement executives and radio people, because they want to build this template. This is how we are going to interoperate with each other. This is historic. This is the first time in this area that these large cities and counties will actually be able to pick up and go, hey, there's a bank robber coming your way, right? Instead of calling a dispatcher, hey, can you find me a user, plug in the multi-relay thing. This is seamless, direct interoperability. You would think it makes sense, right? You would think this is 2018. You mean this doesn't exist today? It's amazing that it doesn't exist everywhere. These two counties are going to be top population areas, right, in the state. You're adding 33 people a day. Isn't it time to, for a modern communication system that's used by probably the top 50 metros in North America? I mean, because really, I know you have a lot of different, these two counties, they're like one big conglomerate now, right? I was one chase about a month ago where that guy was shooting, he went from the county through Springdale, I don't know where he ended up. He went through 5 different jurisdictions, right? So anyway, I digress, but again, I get excited about this stuff. So this is the coverage on a portable basis. All right, and this is the coverage on a mobile basis, the in-car mounted radios. So you see, even there, now you're 3/4 covered just off the tower sites that are proposed and will be built, right? Before you build one radio tower site, you've already covered 3/4 of the county.
Josh knows where Evansville is. Is Evansville covered on this? It looks awfully green to me. That's the toughest spot in Washington County, is Evansville.
Yes.
Is it covered? No. No, I was asking them if it's covered, though, with this system.
the southwest, it's down in that white.
Yeah,
Right down there.
That's coming up.
yeah, it's not in the green today, under the current coverage.
Right. So here's the thing. I mean, that's kind of the edge of the coverage for mobile. And I mean, I drive up here a lot. I'm up here once a week. South Washington County is tough to cover. I mean, that is some tough geographic terrain. But I think the important takeaway from these last 2 slides, here's the portable, here's the mobile. Y'all are already a big chunk of the way there on the radio sites that already exist. Okay? All right, so let's get into what do we need to do specifically for Washington County? All right? So I need to roll over here because I can't see that well, even with my glasses. So you see the dot, Fulbright, Densmore, and out to the left should say Sequoia. Those are 3 of the Fayetteville tower sites, right? And these don't even include the contribution from Springdale. These are just the 3 Fayetteville sites, all right? What we would propose, if you wanted 95% outbound portable coverage, all right, is you see 27W, that's 27, that would be a new proposed tower site, 65W, and the 60W. Now, we kind of looked at, you see some of these terrains here, those are the white spaces, a lot of big drop in valleys, right? But we feel like this could get you the rest of the way there, if that makes sense. This 8W site, now that Springdale, we did this map, Springdale wasn't even on the radar, you would not need this map, this 8W site. So you're looking at 3 brand new tower sites. West Fork is an existing AWIN site, so you would just have to add a few channels to that one. So, and again, everything that Motorola commits to is guaranteed, is tested. So whichever vendor you pick, number 1, you got to buy IP25, and number 2, you want to make sure if you're going to spend millions of dollars that there is a guaranteed coverage outcome. All right? The numbers that got thrown around, wow, these A1 systems, they've gotten less expensive on the subscriber equipment. The risk is in building tower sites, right? Because what you're looking at on this map, there's a piece of raw ground right there, okay? You have to go in, it's a construction project at that point, right? Scrape, build the pad, it's got to meet certain wind loading, ice loading, right? There's a lot of federal documentation has to be, it is a process, and it's expensive. But how often is the county going to make an investment to replace its radio system? You get to, if John's accurate, once every 15 years, right? Think about those guys that are out there at 2 o'clock in the morning, down here, right? They need to have coverage. They need to have coverage on these. Because as soon as that officer gets out of his vehicle, if this doesn't work, he is on an island by himself. So anyway, so that's kind of the high level of what Motorola would recommend. Now again, remember, every time a city or county adds tower sites, it's a win for everybody that uses A-Win. Now, going back here, let me just real quick to this scenario. You notice this, I mean, this is just part of statewide coverage, right? Most of our customers in Northwest Arkansas are going to be, 99% of the users are going to stay somewhere in these 2 counties. What you're not seeing is we just did the coverage in these 2 counties. But there are A-Win sites surrounding the outer perimeter all the way around these 2 counties that you will get benefit from because it's an open roaming system. Again, you can't get better coverage, you can't get better interoperability. So that's kind of it in a nutshell. And again, you know, I think what's the important thing is strategy. So hopefully I got through that quick enough.
You did a great job.
By the way, I cut out 42
What?
slides before I came in here.
Well, one slide that I was going to ask, because Josh had told me about it, and I wanted the group to hear this, was the every 2 years, the state of Arkansas. I don't want it to come from me, I want it to come from y'all on
Yes.
that.
Oh, yeah, forgive me. Yeah, I left out one of the most important benefits of A-Win. Okay, so once you build all the tower sites I just showed you, right, the county doesn't have to spend another dime on maintaining them. Okay, they will join the state maintenance contract that the state of Arkansas picks up on behalf of the users. The only thing you would ever have to maintain are the mobile and portable radios. This list of users right here, that is the best deal. Hey, if the state's going to pay for our maintenance and upgrade, which will happen every 2 years, right? Why not? Why not let the state pay for the maintenance? And the reason they do that is they want to control that infrastructure, so when they do these upgrades, they can do it across the system at one time. Because if they didn't, and you were different software versions, let's say, or hardware versions, we could never upgrade anything.
So if we weren't on that system, what would you call it, maintenance and
System
upgrades?
upgrade.
What would that cost? I mean, how much are we saving by joining the state?
I would say, you know, if you had to, let's just say if you bought a P25 system on your own, you're probably looking at another $200,000 a year for maintenance and upgrade cost. That's what it saves you. It's a pretty significant investment. Also,
Very good.
yeah, if I could, just real quick, the state is looking at this core. John mentioned, hey, we think we should have a core up here in Northwest Arkansas. Motorola agrees, all right? They're expensive to buy and deploy. But I also say, if you look at the track record, Fayetteville's been on at least 8 years. They have a few issues every once in a while, but the system is on the air 99.9% of the 99% of the time. It's some 5.9 statistical thing. So, and the way that these are built and developed, you could lose both the cores in Little Rock tomorrow. Right now, Fayetteville system would not go off the air. There are multiple levels of redundancy built into the system. Rogers wouldn't go off the air, right? Nobody goes totally off the air. They're all simulcast-based systems if you buy one of those, which we would recommend for public safety. And even if you lose your core, you're still up in wide area trunking, and your system is never going to go down. And, you know, the city of Fayetteville called me and said, "What are you selling Springdale their own simulcast system for?" And what do you mean? Well, she had a point, okay? Because we can geographically make some of those components redundant. So Springdale could have put their simulcast controller with Fayetteville's and added another level of redundancy. I think as users get used to the technology, this governance organization takes hold where you've got people sharing information and working collaboratively together, that the designs will evolve, and you might have better use of assets. If you go back to this coverage map, pardon me, if everybody would have came to Motorola and said, "You know what, we want you to cover these 2 counties and this is what we want," you probably would have a lot less sites here, okay? But that's not the way we have to do business up here. First thing we have to do is meet the individual users' needs, which we always do. And the second thing, trying to get 2 county governments and all the cities inside of them to work at one time with budget cycles is impossible. It would take 12 years, right, potentially. But, so anyway, that's kind of it from us. Again, we're not trying to sell you anything. I encourage you to go visit the city of Fayetteville system. I encourage you to go visit the Rogers system. And if you want to, you can go down to Fort Smith or you can go to Russellville. They're all in the system too. And you know, talk to them. What do you think? What do you like? What do you don't like? You know, what about your radios? So,
So my one other question is, if we, since you've already invented the wheel for Benton County,
yes, sir.
if we just copied the same thing, would there not be efficiencies there that we could do and save money by? I know Josh had said it took a year in Benton County to do it.
It's going to be, they worked on their project 3 years before they bought anything.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, basically, we would have the same playbook, but your terrain in South Washington County is a lot different than some of the stuff up in Benton County. Well, think about it and you think about this. We've all bought houses, probably, right?
Didn't you say Fort Smith is on it, though?
Oh, yeah, Fort Smith's
So
on it.
and then Fort Smith overlaps the southern county.
And Sebastian County's on it with Fort Smith. So,
And we can send out a list of full-time users that are on AWIN today.
yeah.
That'll give you a better idea of who else is utilizing the system.
Okay, but I would think that makes it greener on the bottom of the Washington County.
Yeah, when you look at
No.
these coverage map, as Joe mentioned, they are just with these systems up here turned on. We don't have the towers that are surrounding. This is just for the purposes of showing what these systems alone
Would do.
provide.
Yeah.
Correct.
Because I can tell you right now, there's sites, that's in Missouri up there, all the way down, right on the outer perimeter, and definitely Fort Smith and Sebastian County. There's a site called West Fork. That's why that site exists, is because they needed it for the Fort Smith Sebastian County system. I mean, you know, and go on. I mean, Little Rock, Pulaski County, Hot Springs, Garland County just came on. We just turned Garland County on.
Crittenden County.
Yeah, Crittenden County's coming on.
County.
So there's lots of examples of people that have already done this years ago. So it's not like, you know, you're taking some big, huge leap technology-wise, risk-wise.
Right. Who owns the site?
I would say, I mean, you own the site. So if you develop it, and that's a great question, you own everything. You own the towers, you own the spectrum it operates on, you can own the sites. All you're doing is you're plugging into the AWIN master site and linking your microwave to them, right? If you didn't like it, I don't know if somebody said something about, well, what if they don't maintain AWIN, or what if they come up with some egregious user fee, right? Hey, Fayetteville, Rogers, Benton County, Springdale, so they're going to not like it either, and you guys are going to get together and buy yourself a Northwest Arkansas core, and life goes on. Because the same technology we would sell you as a standalone off AWIN system is exactly the same technology AWIN is. Plus, they pay your upgrade and maintenance cost.
I see a lot of head shaking behind you.
There was a question about the upgrade. Governor Hutchinson came into office, we needed an upgrade. He spent $10 million out of the rainy day fund. There's a project being kicked around right now on consolidating PSAPs for Next Gen 911, right? So some of the future technology we have proposed on the microwave piece for AWIN may also allow the state to transmit their Next Gen 911 traffic without going through a carrier and paying a fee forever, right? So there's a lot of synergy around AWIN right now. There's some big investments planned. Multi-tens of $1 million investments that you may hear about here shortly, right? AWIN had the governor at the OEM conference, and John can tell you, he mentioned how vitally important AWIN is to the first responder community in the state of Arkansas. When he was up at the police chiefs conference at the embassy in Rogers, once he thanked all the police officers, he talked about AWIN. Okay, he gets it, he supports it, he knows if something bad happens in this state, that network has to be there and work. So a little bit different view. As far as the investment numbers that were thrown around, I would say that Washington County, until you ask Motorola or we get the opportunity to really understand what is the scope of the project, what are the coverage requirements, where do you want to put tower sites, what tower sites are available, it's impossible to throw out a number, okay? We can give you equipment costs all day. What it takes to build these things, there's a lot of project management that goes into these networks. There's a lot of system engineering that goes into these networks. There's a lot of configuration and professional services that go into these networks to make them operate. So when you start in Rogers, for example, the project, 14 months later, what you get is a mission-critical radio system that is built for public safety. Durable, generator backed up sites, UPSs, so when you have a problem, you're not off the air.
JPs, any questions from you? Lisa?
To follow up on what you have, Mr. Chairman, good point on Evansville. On this AWIN project, 25 system coverage, what you're projecting, is Evansville going to be included?
I'm not really exactly sure where Evansville is
In
in
that
Washington
very
County.
southwest corner.
Because the corner,
Is it down here?
If we do this, the additional.
I mean, I need a magnifying glass on top of these to see exactly where it is.
Is Evansville at the bottom of the
southwest.
valley
Yeah.
down here?
Southwest
there.
Well, it's funny, something about Southwest.
So, well, isn't it more like up here? John?
Oh, it's outside the county? Oh, okay.
No, it's not outside the county, I'm just trying to see where your line is.
Yeah, the red
That's
line
the
was
whole
the
state.
county, and then right here's the purple line's the county line there.
There you go, that white area is the one she's in question.
Okay,
The one over on the southwest corner?
where's the purple one?
Okay, what that means is, you may have great coverage in Evansville. It's just not 95% coverage. If it's 94.9%, it's gonna show up as white. Doesn't mean there's no coverage. Radios don't work like that. It's obviously an important issue, so I would have my engineers go, you need to tell me exactly what the coverage percentage is in Evansville in Washington County.
And keep in mind, we grid out the entire county into sections and actually test the,
We got the Lincoln Fire Chief back there. He's telling me, okay.
Is that A-okay or zero coverage? Zero coverage. Zero coverage.
Well, and I'm not surprised, because if you look at where the system's, just with what's there today, that's not covered here either, right? Now, if you look at what we propose, let's just say, hey, you know what, Motorola, there's nobody over here at this site,
Okay.
right? Move it this way. We need to fill Evansville in. We could do that.
That with
Okay.
27W, it certainly could be in question as to where it truly lands.
Right.
In relation to possibly even like Springtown up there.
Right.
That's probably changed some things over the last year, so that's a joke.
Yes, yes. And so if you look at this map you're looking at, these are what is called composite maps, where we take every site and overlay them till you get this map. We can take each one of these sites individually and run an individual map so you can see the individual impact, right? Again, this is where the engineering piece of this comes in, right? We only use double E professional engineers. We only use professional project managers. It's a completely different experience with Motorola. And yeah, we have a reputation as being expensive, but we're the best. Again, I was trying to say, I'm not selling you anything. I'm just pointing this out, okay, as a fact.
I always like the best for less.
Yes,
That's my motto.
we love
Before
delivering
I go
value.
shopping.
We love to deliver
The best for
value.
less. And
Listen.
you know what? Next term?
Yes, ma'am.
There are going to be more women on this court than there are men who love a bargain. The best for less. And I know that you'll come through.
I'm putting that in the tagline of our executive summary.
You sure do.
The best radio system for less.
The best for less. There you go. That's a freebie. Thank you.
Yes.
I mean, I just want to make sure, I mean, Evansville does get, I don't want to say picked on, but the weather and everything
Oh, sure.
just comes crashing down on them.
Well, the strategy
And
that
if they
we,
can feel secure that they are being taken care of, I know that maybe their population will start growing out there.
You never know.
Thank you. Thank
listen,
you, Mr. Chair.
we wanted to try to locate these sites when we were looking at, because South Washington County is challenging for anybody to design coverage in. We're trying to move everything closer to the population where the people are, right? Because that's where your sheriff's deputies, volunteer fire, that's where they're going to end up, is where most of the people are, right? But there are other solutions to fill in these holes that are very value-based, very value-based.
Well, if I could, I'd like to do something a little bit irregular or different than we normally do. I see a lot of people out there in the public that actually know how to ask a better question than we do because they live it day in and day out. So with y'all sitting there, could I go ahead and ask for public comments at
Sure.
this point in time and ask if there's any questions of the public? Does anybody have a question for these two gentlemen? And then after that, if you have comments that you want to make, you can come up and make your comments. But are there any questions for Josh or Gordon? Anyone have any questions?
The only question I have is,
Come on up front.
you can hear me fine.
No, no, we can't.
The only really question I have is the areas that's gonna be protected. I know we're picking on we're picking on Evansville, but there's a Strickler, there's a lot more than just us. There's a White House, and we have terrible, terrible coverage
Today?
today, right now.
Yeah.
We had a fire this morning at 5 o'clock. Three fire departments couldn't talk to one another.
Exactly.
I mean, it's horrible.
That's what I want is
If we're
those
not gonna
comments.
cover everybody, it ain't gonna work.
Now, Willie's your new JP, so he'll be going forward. So he's the one that's going to spearhead all this along with Sue Madison. And Lisa
Chairman, I think
Ecke.
it's important to say, when we saw this early on last.
John, come on
early
up.
in the year-
I'll never hear you.
That's all right. When we saw this early in the year, and I think this is very important, these are propagation studies. A lot has been added since the time we initially met. Some can say coming to the game late's not always good, but certainly there's a lot of infrastructure that wasn't in place, and there's a lot of infrastructure coming that wasn't in place. So as those things start to flesh out what they're going to cover, the additions that we make can be very specific if in fact it gets to that. And we can actually say, show us the propagation studies and these are the areas in question. And we can work to make certain that those areas, like Willie mentioned, are covered. And I think that would be the goal, no matter what we do.
Absolutely.
So, John, my big question for you is how do we move forward as a quorum court to work with you as a 911 emergency
Well, first
manager?
thing I would say is
And
we
you've
need-
already got a committee,
I
it
was
sounds
gonna
like,
say,
formed.
We need to make certain that that committee is well represented. This system will be glad to host and coordinate any effort as we move forward. But those are the players that are in the field every day. Those are the ones that have to invest in product. And I think that we need to make certain at the end of the day, they have a voice. And they're heard just like Willie and others. So I think we continue with the committee and get good input from the committee and get direction from the court as to to which way to go, you know.
Well, very good. I would suggest that you work very closely with the new court and, you know, report back and forth and maybe even have a person, Willie would be a great one to nominate since he's on both, to coordinate it so it's, you know, we stay on top of it and don't put it back on the back burner or whatever analogy you want to use. But where we don't forget about it, where we don't put it off for 3 years, instead we take care of it in the next 2.
I don't think we have the ability to put it off. I think we're to a point where we're going to have to do it, and I think the amount of funding that the court is able to make available to us, you know, will dictate a lot of what we do. So
I think we should also encourage our grant folks to work on it and see if there's grant money to get, because we might be missing something that's out there. So I would encourage that as well.
You know, I think, I was just going to say real quick, it starts with coverage. What coverage do you want for Washington County? That's what's going to drive the cost, right? If you want 95% portable coverage everywhere in the county, that's what you tell the vendors, hey, we want this coverage, we expect it to be guaranteed, and it's going to be tested, and you're going to be held accountable to make sure we get it. And that'll drive your number right from the start.
Very good. Thank you. J.P. Bowman, you had a question.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. You know, I'm just amazed at the technology here that we're talking about. Sounds like it's absolutely fabulous and something we really need. I guess the only thing that I sat up here and almost gasped to think about us coming up with $5 to $7 million at this point to try to invest in a system like this when we're struggling to cover costs right now.
Yes, sir.
Especially with what's going on in our jail, and we've been looking at budgets everywhere we can to try to come up with money to cover everything. Sound like to me this is kind of like buying a house. You got to go have a 30-year finance.
Yes, sir. Let's say, and let me, you know, those numbers are certainly reasonable. The city of Fayetteville paid $6 million for their almost $7 million to build those 3 sites, right, and have a lot of radios. That was in 2011. Prices have come down. There's more economic. That's the great thing about P25, right? There's probably 50 vendors that make radios for P25, right? So costs have come down. We think we're really good at it, but we have to compete, right? Where I was going with that is it would take 2 budget cycles at a minimum to build this system. If you said, hey, Joe, okay, you sold us, we want to build this system. It's probably 14 to 18 months, especially if we have green sites. It might be almost 2 years to build it. Just when you go through all the federal stuff and the construction process, and just, it's a lot of moving parts. You know, I think Rogers spent $3.3 million. Benton County, they're using existing tower sites that already exist, $4 million. Springdale's probably around the $4.5 million range because they added a lot of different features. You know, all of them are going to have GPS tracking. There's just a whole lot of stuff that goes into that. Motorola also can do a 5-year. We have a municipal county program where, you know, we can handle over 5 equal payments, right? At very competitive interest rates, I might add. Maybe a little bit higher than what you can get a bond for. But the great thing about that is, hey, if you're trying to manage the county's bond rates and don't want to use that credit up on radio stuff, we could take care of that for you, right? So there's a lot of ways to get started. Some customers, hey, we like it. We have no money we want to put in this system next. Fine, we'll start building for you in 2019. You pay us in 2021, or we'll give you 12 months or 13 months. We'll give you a whole year.
Yeah. At that point, we'll look over at JP Essery. Do we have any extra money, JP Essery?
Plenty of money, right?
Very good. Well, I'd like to thank both of you for coming and making the presentation. John Luther for your presentation as well, and everybody in the audience for your interest in this. Keep the heat under the new JP Court. Don't let this be a forgotten thing. I think it's too important for Washington County. You know, what's the value of a life worth? What's someone's life worth? I said, mine's not very much. And they asked me, the same person asked me, said, well, what's your grandchild's worth? Exactly. You know, that grandchild that's in school, that grandchild that's at Lake Weddington and needs help, whatever the example might be. So, when you put it in that text, your grandchildren, they're worth all of this or more.
All of it.
And much more, so.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much for
Thank you.
everything that you did. Please stay in contact with the right people.
Yes, sir.
And please visit with each other afterwards so that everybody has each other's contact information, and we'll share it as well. JP's, any other comments? Public, do you have any comments? At this time, we invite you to come up and speak. So, thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
John, I just want to ask John.
Go ahead and introduce yourself again.
My name's Willie Lemming.
Thank you, Willie.
John, how long, I know you probably can't tell us, but how much time do we really have on our radio system, honestly? You probably can't really say that.
Well, minus a catastrophic failure, minus some major, and I'll just use lightning strike for an example on the controller. Minus that, I think it'll continue to work as it is. I can't give you a date.
Right.
But with that catastrophic failure, it can certainly cripple the system, in one lightning strike.
And we talk about Next Edge too. How long do you honestly think, if we went that direction, a cheaper version, how much time do you think that would buy us? Would it buy us 15 years, or would it buy us 5 years?
I think either one of the protocols in question will certainly go 15 years.
You think so?
Yeah, no question about it. They're both newer technologies. The technology we use today was mid-life when we came on it. And both of these technologies are certainly newer. Yes.
Well, I think the P25 system is the way to go if we can afford that system, if we can come up with the money to fix it. Because I think that's a longer-term system, and I think we'll get a better buck for our bang, or for our money. So I would rather see us spend more to get better, if that's the way we have to go. And I think that's the way we have to go, honestly.
Again, it comes
And-
down to what can be afforded.
Sue, you was asking a question about the schools, and John didn't ever say anything about it. Most all of our schools has got resource officers in them now, and they have county radios now, and they're pretty good at communicating with each other, but, that's still not the best for the school system, and the AWIN for the school and everybody talking together is a better system. I drove a school bus, and I know about the kids and hauling them, and we had radios, and that system was very well not good. So
That would be an improvement.
it'd be a big improvement. So,
Well, Willie, thank you.
thank you.
Anyone else? JP Pond, recognize you.
Because of the poor coverage we have now, poor to none in the south end of the county, I was just curious with that AWIN system and Siloams on that, would that help that area down there on the south end of the county? Just, before we add more infrastructure, which we obviously need to do.
Butch, about 6 months ago, we heard our presentation. The judge and I addressed that area. And the solution to that area is going to be critical location of a new tire, or maybe 2 new tires out in that area. There's natural blockage by high elevations. We had a critical situation not about 6 months ago where we had a dump truck turned over, didn't know the condition of the person, couldn't reach him. Finally, we got a person to him. He drove back up and said, hey, we need what we need. Our support team came. 30, 40 minutes. It's critical, and when we talk about that area out there, that's as important to me as any other area. When we talk about 95%, I come from the 100% group. We don't fail. We don't fail those people out there. And if we have to put another tire out there, we do it. The cost is high, here's where we are. We've been through the budget, we're still into the budget, but we're looking at this strongly now. We'll have a new quorum court starting the next meeting after this one, and this will be a priority for 2019. We're looking at a 2020 completion. So that's where we are on this system.
Good to hear.
I have one comment. While I got you up here on the spot. And I'd very much, because of his knowledge and experience in that part of the county, I'd like to see Willie on any kind of committee or anything you got that's working on that. If he has time to spare, I'd really appreciate it.
These are volunteers, so yes.
Thank you.
Willie can volunteer and we'll gladly accept. We like Willie. He's going to be a JP.
That's right. Any other comments from the public? Then can I have a motion? Thank you. Thank you. All in favor? Thank you very much, public. We're through. Thank you for participating.